Hey, welcome back to Yvonne Wakefield's YouTube channel, where I read from my book series, Babe in the Woods. The first one we covered was Babe in the Woods, Building a Life One Lock at a Time. I'm reading tonight, or today, from Babe in the Woods Self-Portrait, which takes up after I built this log cabin when I was 18, and Babe in the Woods Path of Totality takes you up to today. So besides dinking around in this log cabin that I still own, and actually was just up there, I'm an artist and I teach kids a lot. We have a little picture back here, which I love this painting this really strapping guy just made. And these paintings that these kids I'm working with are going to go into a place called Safe Space, where kids who've been abused are going to have artwork created by kids for kids in a healing environment. So that's another aspect of me dinking around. Except it's not dinking around. It's such an amazing experience. I'm wearing my smock because, you know Pigpen, that character in the Charles Schwartz comic book Snoopy? I'm kind of like a Pigpen. If there's paint around, I'm going to be in it. So I keep this on. I just kept it on for you tonight. So we're going to go into chapter 9, Crossing Hairs. If you remember from last chapter, chapter 8, I just returned for the summer and found bears had gotten all the provisions underneath the cabin. The guy who had my truck rolled it. I'm going back. I think I'm probably either 19 or 20 then. And when I was up at the cabin this weekend, I went, wow, how could I do that at that age? Because it's really solitary up there. I mean, there's nobody up there. There's no electricity. You get your water from the creek with buckets. I'm still doing that today. So you have to be in a mental space to continue to do this. So we're going to jump back a few decades ago, and we're going into chapter 9 in Babe in the Woods, Self-Portrait. Scree! 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 Shit! Shit! Get! I screamed back and fend off a swooping bird with talons aimed at my scalp. Its circles tighter, targeting, I figured, the smaller prey protectively picked up and pulled fast to my chest. But its bold eyes appear to be my skull rather than the feline snug at my breast. That was my cat. I'm talking about the little animal I picked up was my cat that I had up at the cabin. Sorry, little buddy. I drop Inapee, the name of my cat. I drop Inapee in a poof of road dust and grab a nearby evergreen branch. Brandish like a Samari warrior, twirling like a fan dancer on amphetamines, I make some intimidating moves myself as I fend off arid advances. My hair, feathers, and breezes wisp by the wings that bank sharply, then fold against a downy bosom, heaving atop a raggedy fur-crowned perch. I've no idea how long it takes eggs to hatch or for fledglings to fly, but after that first encounter, I wear a small aluminum pail on my head whenever I walk by that goshawk nest. Like the bear, goshawks were never a problem before. Now I finished the cabin, all the chainsaw growling, pounding, and swearing quieted into wall logs. The woodland creatures must feel safe to come again. Rattled from that close encounter of a winged kind, I dust off my cat and finish gathering roadside tinder, then prepare to spend the morning drawing in the loft. I should have been on the roof nailing down tamarack shades, but instead I was cleaning new repetigraph pens with nibs 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, and 1, and 2, purchased in Eugene. Ammonia and water, I discovered, did as good of cleaning Joe's pinhead-sized points as did the pricey solvents sold in streamlined jars, architect's favorite. While preparing to exercise those points, I was also counting carpenter ants climbing in and out a freshly burrowed hole in the dormer loft windsill, supporting red wing mugs and mason jars filled with brushes, pencils, and pens. When the nibs were nested into ink-filled cartridges, I sat down to draw the forest on the other side of the window, my concentration broken by the ants streaming up, over, and down the windowsill, framing my composition. There are 6 tubes of silicone wrapped in pink fiberglass insulation under the cabin. They'd not frozen over the winter, and I glide one into the caulking gun, then shoot a plug into the carpenter ant hole in progress. This immediately stems the army, and any deserters are squished with the matchbooks advertising a mail-in drawing contest awarding $1,000 to the winner. The tube is still nearly full, so I draw a wobbly bead between the sill and window for extra weather stripping. Intently cocking away with a bird's eye view of the creek, I assume the dark gap on the other side of the bank is just another hole in the forage, until it moves. A mussel bundled of black fur bumbles through the brush and noses the refrigerator box I built from 2x scraps and sunk with boulders in the creek. It claws apart the board with tea saucer-sized paws, snags a head of lettuce, and toys it to shred, then spears a chunk of Tillamook cheese. When it's done, the black bear walks back into the bush with a bread bag in its mouth. By then, the caulking gun, still squeezed tight in my hand, is empty as my refrigerator. The matchbook, really tricking wannabe artists to buy a mail-in drawing course, is plastered under a gooey silicone mess. The next day, while on the roof, banging down the shakes, I spy a bear trundling up the path, perhaps sniffing out buried grains or a Tampax dropped into the privy pit. Rather than being scared away by all my hammering, it merely stretches its ebony neck, snorts, snout twitching, and heads uphill. From that day on, I burn all waste and pack into town any garbage I cannot set aflame. Dan, remember Dan's the guy who borrowed my truck and rolled it? Dan, do you have a gun I could borrow to shoot a bear? In the time I'd known Dan Gray, king of secondhand sales and questionable bargains, I'd only bought things from him. Borrowing was a new kind of transaction with a similar ring. Only have a shotgun. He rubs his phantom cheekbone. Might be able to kill him if you get the barrel real close to his ear. He scratches his corrugated neck, or maybe his eye. Dan goes inside his house while I wait in the backyard among contraptions in all states of disrepair and tools in all degrees of dereliction, positioned haphazardly on plywood sheets supported by sawhorses. Mostly Dan sells things as is and won't cut bargaining slack, even if a tool is broken. Easy to fix it and steals better than anything new, he rationalizes before sealing a deal. I bought a draw knife, axe, post hole digger, hammer, handsaw, and various other tools, which have to be pounded out, sharpened, and oiled to work. Each time I go to his backyard, I walk out with some tool he has convinced me to purchase because he says it'll come in handy someday. He even convinced me to buy a busted truck, and it wasn't his to sell. He returns and shoves a rusty planer and dead chainsaw to the side of the table, lays down and unzips a mildewy shotgun case. Here. He hands me the gun inside. My arms sag with an alien weight. I strain to level, but instead settle the rifle butt on my foot and look down the barrel. Hey! Dan shoves the firearm away from my prying eye. I just want to see if there's a bullet inside. He grabs the gun from my limp wrist clutch and raises the stock to his hulking shoulder, shuffles into a wide stance. Look down it, not in it, he says, turning towards me before aligning his sight down the steely blue shaft. You point that little piece of metal sticking straight up at the end at what you want to hit, and boom! He recoils from an imaginary shot. That very evening on the porch, while reading Leonard Cohen's Musings on Upturned Breasts of Fallen Sparrows, the opportunity to draw a bead arose. Concluding I am not seeing double, I lay down the volume and lift the rifle, laying inert beside 3 open poetry books, stand, spread my legs, and level the barrel. aimed the piece of metal sticking straight up at one bear, the larger one with a gray muzzle. It is beefier and more vexing than the sleeker, smaller bear standing beside it that looks like the one who ripped apart my refrigerator box. Rushing adrenaline unsteadies the bead I struggle to fit on some portion of the bear as it noses out that same box nailed back together. Nothing now in it besides scent. When the crosshairs steady over a square of undulating hide, I slowly squeeze the trigger like Dan had only so recently instructed. The barrel bounces up as the butt and live shell drop, the cartridge rolling to rest in a floorboard crack. With half a rifle in hand and of no use at all, I resort to the big guns, bang together, the wastebasket and fire poker. All right, that concludes that chapter, which is actually an introduction to the entire summer I spent dealing with rogue bears. Rogue bears, which I learned afterwards, had been trouble bears in national parks, and they were tranquilized and dropped into the wilderness. And when they woke up, they found a deer kill up above my cabin. And after they finished with the deer kill, they sent it what I had at my cabin. So several of the chapters deal with that situation. Since then, I've never had any issues with bears. Anyway, thanks for listening. We're still in self-portrait. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Watch my podcasts if you like. Buy the book online in all versions, audio, print, digital. And if you like it, review it. Only if you like it. Anyway, it's getting to be summer. So remember, as always, stay hydrated as little Hello Kitties. Bye-bye.